The Hilton sale is on. Now through September 29th, you can save up to 20% on stays this fall and beyond. Long weekends, last-minute getaways, holiday gatherings. There's a Hilton stay for all of them. More moments, more experiences, more destinations. Now 20% off for a limited time because it matters where you stay. Don't wait. Book by September 29th and save up to 20% at Hilton.com. Terms apply. Hilton for the stay.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome to the Age of Jeremy. My name is Jeremy Quintanilla. If you're new to the show is all about my business adventures and side quests. I own some businesses that you might know: 3T Warrior Academy, Freedom Insurance, Q Financial, Age of Radio, and Merlin, the smartest way to track your crypto, to name a few. And you should head on over to merlincrypto.com to check out our crypto tracking app. It allows you to aggregate all of your exchanges and wallets into one place so you can have real-time information about where your whole portfolio is. It also allows you to set up exit targets so that you can take advantage of profits on the way up, and you can take those profits and reallocate them or deploy them in different ways. So check out merlincrypto.com. You should also check out our YouTube channel for Age of Radio at Age of Radio. First, we have most of our podcasts on there that you can listen to. We're a podcast network, the largest podcast network that anybody can join to help distribute, grow, and monetize their show. So you can head on over to ageofradio.com. But if you are on the YouTube at Age of Radioverse, you can actually see our live shows like Cause Talk Live, a show with Jinx and Thermo AZ, Jinx Cosplay and Thermo AZ, where they talk about cosplay, and then they have other guest shows as well. So check that out. There's also Explain Yourself with Benjamin Morse and Joey Galvez, where they bring on content creators in the indie comic book space and talk about their projects and then talk about crowdfunding as a whole. And then, of course, there is my show, Mercury, your home for podcasting and other pop culture news, which we are building into one of the largest, I guess, panel entertainment shows that's out there. And I'm really excited because we got invited to go to the Phoenix Zoo on November 8th and to do a 4-hour live stream about their Comic Conversations exhibit. And they are going to have a special guest. Todd McFarlane is going to be there on October 4th, not when we're on there on November 8th. So I guess I'll go back to that in a second. On November 4th, we'll be there. We'll be talking to one of the creators of the Comic Conversations idea, some of the people from the zoo, hopefully doing an animal segment as well, and then one of the authors whose content is up in the Comic Conversations gallery. But if you're in Arizona on October 4th, go to their main opening. Todd McFarlane is going to be there. And again, this is at the Phoenix Zoo. Todd McFarlane is the creator of Spawn. He also does McFarlane Toys. So make sure that you check that out. If you're in the Valley on October 4th and you're like, comics aren't my thing, I want to learn how to create generational wealth and not pay taxes, you can come to our Freedom Insurance live event. That's the reason why we're not going to be at the Phoenix Zoo event on on October 4th and going on November 8th. But on October 4th, we are having a live event at our conference center in Mesa, Arizona. So head on over to Coach JV on Instagram or on TikTok. You can go to the link tree that's in there and you can find more information about that event. I'll be speaking at that event as well. So I'm really excited about that because I have not written anything that I'm going to be talking about at that event. And I'm headed out to, in fact, when you're listening to this, I'll be at Illinois. I'm recording this on Sunday, 9/21, and then I'm leaving for Illinois on Monday, the 22nd, and you'll hear this when you're hearing it, but I released it on the 23rd. So those are all the cool things that are going on. So make sure that you check out all of those things. And I'm going to jump into this main topic that I want, or one of the main topics that I want to talk about. You know, if you're new to this show, the first part of the show, I talk a little bit about business things that I think you need to know. And I think that this is kind of important. And I will start this off. This is an article about World Liberty Financial and some things that might be considered unethical from the old political guard, and should be considered unethical. I think that they're unethical personally, but I do want to say that I do own World Liberty Financial tokens as well, and this is about World Liberty Financial. And you might be saying, hey, Jeremy, I thought you didn't like Trump, and I don't. I plan on giving most of the profit, at least 50% of the profit that I make off of World Liberty Financial, to nonprofit organizations and to the Democrats that will be opposing Trump in the next election. And I thought it would be humorous to do that, not only from the fact that the Democrats are going to get money from Trump, a Trump thing, and then Trump's money is things that he's made with wealth is going to go to the Democrats. And so again, those are the kinds of things that I do because I'm able to do those things. Okay, so that being said, I do own World Liberty Financial. I think that you should invest in World Liberty Financial and take advantage of funds unless you have some type of integral reason why not to do that. There are some integral things that I won't do that Trump's involved with. This, I think, I'm big into crypto financial infrastructure. And again, I know that it's making Trump money, but I think that that's why I decided to give most of it, at least 50% of it, away to the Democratic Party, and then also to, because I'm a Democrat, to the Democratic Party, and then also to nonprofits. But anyways, the New York Times did a piece called The Anatomy of Two Giant Deals. It's by like 90 people. Apparently it takes to write articles now. Eric Lipton, David Yoff Bellamy, Bradley Hope, Trip Mickle, and Paul Mosier. I'm going to read to you the basis of it, and then I'll tell you my thoughts on it. But I want you to know this because the U.A.E. ended up getting chips out of this situation from NVIDIA, and the Trump team got crypto riches. So this is a lucrative transaction involving the Trump's family cryptocurrency firm and an agreement giving the Emiratis access to AI chips, which were connected in ways that have not been previously reported. And I think that that's where the unethical part is seen about this. And so in this summer, Steve Witkoff, who's President Trump's Middle East envoy, paid a visit to the coast of Sardinia. It's a stretch of the Mediterranean, and he met on a super yacht. It was an extravagant vessel. Mr. Witkoff sat down with a member of the ultra-rich ruling family of the United Arab Emirates. He was meeting Sheikh Tahnoun bin Zayed Al Nahyan, a trim figure in dark glasses who controls about 1.5 trillion of the Emirati sovereign wealth. I don't know why the trim figure part was relevant, but that's what's in the article, and so that's what I read. It was the largest engagement in a consequential alliance. Over the past few months, Mr. Witkoff and Sheikh Tahnoun had become both diplomatic allies and business partners, testing the limits of ethics rules while enriching the president, his family, and his inner circle, which I like to call cronies, according to an investigation by the New York Times. At the heart of their relationship are two multi-billion-dollar deals. One involved a crypto company founded by the Witkoff and the Trump families, which is World Liberty Financial, that benefited both of the families. The other involved, and probably the cronies, the other involved a sale of valuable computer chips that benefited the Emirates, or Emiratis. Emirates? The Emirates? Yeah, the Emirates, economically. If you're from the Emirates, I apologize. While there is no evidence that one deal was explicitly offered in return for the other, the confluence of the two agreements is in itself extraordinary. Taken together, they blurred the lines between personal and government business and raised questions about whether U.S. interests were served. In May, Mr. Witkoff's son, Zach, announced the first of the deals at a conference in Dubai. One of Sheikh Tahnoun's investment firms would deposit $2 billion into World Liberty Financial, a cryptocurrency startup founded by the Witkoffs and Trumps. 2 weeks later, the White House agreed to allow the U.A.E. access to hundreds of thousands of the world's most advanced and scarce computer chips, a crucial tool in the high-stakes race to dominate artificial intelligence. Many of the chips would go to a company called G42, which is a sprawling technology firm controlled by Sheikh Tahnoun, despite national security concerns the chips could be shared with China. The negotiations involved another key White House official with ties to the tech industry and the Middle East, David Sachs. A longtime venture capitalist, Mr. Sachs served as the administration's AI and crypto czar, a newly created position that has allowed him to shape the tech policy even as he continues to work in Silicon Valley. So, real quick before I continue, I want to say that One, I think that you should listen to a show that David Sachs is on. It's called All In. They are traditionally rightists, or more right leaning than I am, right? Obviously, right. Anyway, so I get that part. Some of it's really good. Information is the key. You should be trying, and this is why I have these articles. You should be trying to get as much information about stuff as you possibly can, because that will allow you to help you make better decisions. Information is super important. You have more information, you can create better decision, or you can have better decision making with the information that you have, so you should listen to it. Secondly, David Sachs, cryptos are position. I personally am a fan of it. I agree with the position itself. I think that AI and crypto, or blockchain technology, are the most important technologies that exist today and are super, super important for the world as a whole. And it's very important for America and our allies. Again, I am a very America first person when it comes to certain things, especially the people of America. I want them to prosper. I want them to not have to be hungry. I want this to be a place where all immigrants can come and thrive. So then after that, I'm a world first kind of person. So America first, world first. And then that means that we have to make sure that the world lasts. So climate change is real. I'm just saying that, and I'm leaving it at that. You can argue with me all you want. I probably won't argue back, because it might just not worth arguing with some people. Anyway, point is that I think that you should learn AI. You should have cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is not going away. It's going to become the infrastructure of our entire financial ecosystem, and it needs to be that way, because the financial system is garbage anyways. And on top of that, the definance infrastructure also benefits the entire world, because it allows us to transact money much better and faster globally than we can with the other infrastructure. And a lot of it is available to people to build upon, to use the infrastructure to create apps, and be able to create apps that can increase financial transactions without having to go through the banking system, okay, or throughout having to go through the government. And I am a huge supporter of that piece of it. So I think it's good that we have a crypto czar. I think all countries should have it. And we're just gonna have to get over ourselves, learn it, and we need to continue to build policy and work to make it stronger. Okay, so again, no problem with the crypto czar position itself. David Sachs, not a super fan of, but whatever. The Times found that the agreement, and I take that back. I am a fan of some of the technology that he has been a part of. So I shouldn't necessarily say that, but I probably wouldn't hang out with him. Now, the Times found that and I shouldn't say that. Maybe I would hang out with him. I don't know. As of right now, because I don't know him, he's not the first person that I would hang out with. The Times found that the agreements were intertwined, and again, in ways that have not been previously reported, and that they provoked concerns about conflict of interest. Okay, so the Times reviewed correspondence and interviewed more than 75 people, many of whom spoke on the condition of anonymity to describe sensitive matters, to reveal new details that show how the deals got done. Okay, so it's the first one. Steve Witkoff advocated to give the Emirates access to the chips at the same time that his and Mr. Trump's family business was landing the crypto investment, despite an ethics rule intended to prohibit officials from participating in matters that could benefit themselves or their relatives. Mr. Sachs was a key figure in the chips negotiations, raising alarm from some Trump administration officials who believe that it was improper for a working venture capitalist to help broker deals that could benefit his industry and investors in his company. I agree with that also. He received a White House ethics waiver allowing him to participate. So again, Trump allowed him to participate. Next, a senior executive based in the U.A.E. worked simultaneously for World Liberty and Sheikh Tahanoun's G42, creating a link between the two companies as the Emiratis were pushing to gain access to the AI chips. So there was an individual that worked in G42 and on World Liberty Financial Technology at the same time, which allowed them to have this push to gain access to the AI chips. Some Trump administration officials tried to limit the chips deal, but an unexpected intervention by the conservative agitator Laura Loomer changed the power dynamic within the White House in the UAE's favor. Representatives for the White House and World Liberty both denied any connection between the two deals, with an administration spokeswoman calling the crypto transaction totally unrelated to any government business. Okay, if you want to read the rest of the article, head on over to the New York Times. You have to have I don't know if I can share. Can I gift a New York article? Let's see here. I can gift it. I will share the full article in my broadcast channel, Dope Insights and Updates, on Instagram. So head on over to Instagram, follow me, go into the little bio, click the little Dope Updates and Insights. I'm going to share this full article with all of you so you can go and check it out, okay? Because I think that that's important. Because you need to know this, because this is a really strange transaction that is something that I think that we need to be worried about, and I'll tell you, and I'm going to tell you why right now. The reason why we need to be kind of concerned about it is because the government and the business should be working together. If this is I think there's a better economic way to do these things, but I'm not going to talk about that right now. If this is the way that we're going to have it, then they should not be working together. Okay. This creates cronyism or crony capitalism. The U.A.E. should not have any type of ability to gain profit from a close, or in this case, possibly a direct relationship with the people in power or the state power, which in this case would be the Trump family. So that's the first problem with this that we shouldn't allow. We shouldn't allow this to happen, because businesses need to be businesses and the government needs to be government. And while some people may think that if the government lets the businesses prosper, then all things prosper, it traditionally doesn't work that way, because the only people that matter to the business is going to be the shareholders of the business. And unless the shareholders of the business are everybody, or possibly everybody in that business, or everybody in the United States, then they don't have any real obligation to make anything else better happen in the world with the profit that they create. Their goal is to make as much profit as possible and either reinvest in the business so the stock price goes up that way, or to pay it out to shareholders in the form of dividends. A government's responsibility is to make sure that those people don't do bad things, to make sure that the civilians are going to be protected, to make sure that our, government-owned land prospers, and to make sure that the states prosper and the people inside of those states have the ability to take advantage of opportunities as they come to them. Okay. And so, and to make sure that houses exist for people, that people are being fed, our people aren't dying, and the people are safe. After that, the extent of the government should be nil in most things that are happening. And again, you might be saying, well, then does that mean that the businesses should go around? Well, no, the community should be able to hold the businesses accountable if they're doing things that impact those other things that I just said, which the government has to make sure that those things don't happen, like the food, the housing, the death, the safety, I guess, of the people that are inside of them, and that they have opportunities, or that they can live their life the way that they want to live. And businesses tend to, capitalism as a whole, as a large, capitalism, at least as it relates to, big, large companies, for the most part, prevent those things from happening, or can hinder those things from happening. Okay. And so these two things should not be this tied together. Okay, that's the first problem with this. The second problem with this is that, let's say that those businesses maybe donated. Well, one, a foreign entity can't donate into a campaign. But with the way in which deregulated or unregulated financial systems work, or with DeFi, or decentralized cryptocurrency companies, is that it allows them to invest in them, without really investing in them, kind of in this situation, and then gain benefit, which is something that shouldn't happen, and it shouldn't be tied that way. The other problem with this is the fact that it's possible that these chips get in the hands of China. Now, I would imagine David Sachs is like, hey, he's not trying to get them in the hands of China. He's saying, hey, let's get AI chips into the hands of these other countries so that their countries can prosper us from us. It'll create competition. It'll make us work hard, and then we can all do really, really well. But the thing is, if we're talking about them getting into the hands of China, who is an ally / enemy, I guess, in this case, is that we want to be the best at AI. We want to win that race, because if China does build stronger ties with Russia, and Russia just sent drones into Poland a week ago or a couple weeks ago, and everybody missed it because everybody was talking about Charlie Kirk, and rightly so. He was assassinated, and we need to have that conversation and that discourse. But they're building stronger ties, and eventually China will go after Taiwan. It may not be for another 10 years, right? And because they need to have strong ties, they need to build strong relationships, but they have a long-term plan, and our plans are so short-term sometimes that I don't think we realize what the 30 years will look like if the AI gets in the hands of China, and then they're able to, get past what we're able to with AI. And then also too, if artificial intelligence becomes, if the third world war is a digital world war, then whoever has the best AI might be the one who actually wins that war. So why would we put it in a place where it could possibly get in the hands of our competitors? If China wants better AI chips, if Dubai wants better AI chips, then they freaking find a way to make better AI chips. That's what would be done in that specific situation. So again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't vote for Donald Trump. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. Well, I guess you can't. Well, depending on what happens, you can't vote for Trump again. I'm not saying that you shouldn't vote for J.D. Vance or any of the MAGA or anything like that. And I'm not saying that you should not invest in World Liberty Financial, because I invested in World Liberty Financial. I would never vote for any, at least as of right now, I would never vote for anybody that's in the Trump camp. But the thing is that you need to know about these things, because there is a large piece being played for artificial intelligence, and a large piece of infrastructure being integrated into our financial system here in the United States. And I encourage you, and the reason why I'm going to do one of those clapping, the reason why I keep bringing this up is because of the fact that I don't want to see you get left behind. Get involved with cryptocurrency, get involved with AI. And again, I would just research kind of like who's really trying to. The problem that I've always had with Donald Trump, and it's just my opinion, is that I don't personally think Donald Trump wakes up and is like, I want to be a horrible person, and I'm evil, and I want to be, like the next Hitler. Okay. I think Donald Trump wakes up and he says, how can I be in a place where I have a lot of power, my family has a lot of power, and my family can become the richest family in the world? Now that might lead to maybe evil things. That definitely will possibly lead to unethical things. I just want you to think about those things, and why that this specific situation with this, what most people would think is a quid pro quo, but there's no proof of that there was a quid pro quo, that if you use our platform to invest $2 billion, in this case it was in Binance, and the platform gets some revenue in certain ways off of that, is that if you do that, we'll open up something that the Trump the Republican majority of the Republicans and the Democrats think is a bad idea, because of how close G42 works with China, and China being able to access those chips. And we are in an AI race and a blockchain race, in my opinion. Those right now are the most important technologies, and you should do everything that you can to understand them, be a part of them, and invest in those infrastructures. We'll be right back. I stopped saying we'll be right back because I don't know if commercials play. So we're just going to pause.
Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contracts. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan. $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku. And it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
I'm always looking for ways to show my cat how much I love her. And with Fancy Feast gems, I can pamper her whenever I want with a savory gravy on top of a gourmet mousse pâté. The pyramid shape makes serving simple, so all I have to do is peel and plate to make mealtime feel extra fancy. And with 2 entrees in every pack, it's easy to turn every day into the extraordinary. Fancy Feast gems.
One thing that really frustrates me sometimes is that, and again, it's not on the people that are doing it. It's like a personal thing. That's the reason why I'm bringing it up, because it's really important to be able to be a successful leader and to grow your business or your content the way in which you want it to grow and be. And that thing is that everybody has an opinion, and people like to share that opinion with people. And I feel that that's gotten even more exasperated over the years because of social media. And so sometimes I get defensive, but not so much in the way because people are providing feedback. It's just because everybody wants to provide feedback. And when you're hearing it from a lot of different people in different areas, especially because I have a lot of people that I work with in general, it can sometimes just get frustrating constantly needing to hear feedback. And the feedback's not even necessarily for me. It could be about something as a whole, but because I'm the one that is responsible for a lot of stuff, I have to think about the feedback, and then I have to figure out how we move forward with the feedback, or if the feedback even matters, and how to be approachable. And so this situation recently happened to me, and I feel that there was feedback that provided was very, very, I think the feedback that was provided was a little bit broad. I think if it was a little bit more specific, it may not have frustrated me as much. And then I got defensive in regards to the feedback. Okay, and so I'm not going to go too much into it, but essentially, or deep into it, just because to keep certain things private for the people that have shared confidence in me. But the point is that I got a little defensive, and then I looked it back and I was like, oh, you know what? This is actually good because it's aligning me with some manifestation that I'm doing to grow something to a certain level. And so I went back to the individual and said, hey, I'm going to work on being, with my defensive-ness. And what I thought was ironic about the situation is I had just listened to a brand new episode of Hidden Brain with Shankar Vedante, I think is how you pronounce his name. I'm the worst person with names, and so I will always apologize. And one day, Shankar, if you're on my podcast, which you will be eventually, probably, maybe, who knows, maybe I'll be on your podcast. That probably seems more likely. I will learn your name better. So my apologies. And so on the podcast, it's about like being able to discuss being defensive and being able to discuss situations about things that need to be better. And I think that it's okay for us to have conversations with each other and tell people how we feel about them. I also think that it's okay for people to possibly feel hurt because of the way in which people feel about them, but it's not okay to then, not take to what that person's taking into consideration. It makes more sense to look at the situation as a whole and try to figure out the best outcome for what's going on. And again, not to get sidetracked into politicalness, but this is why diversity, equity, and inclusion is important. And it also takes longer because the more diverse we are, right, the more we will have conversations that are difficult, and the better the outcomes will eventually be from those solutions. Now, do I necessarily we need to be that way in all instances in running companies? Maybe not at the beginning. We need to tell people they need to do what they need to do. This is the right way to do it. We don't need to have a long conversation. That's how we can move faster. And then we need to move to having these types of conversations. That's just my personal opinion on certain things, So to get back to the main thing is I was listening to the Hidden Brain podcast that was talking about that. And there was a situation when it happened, and I did the exact thing that I was hoping that I wouldn't do in that specific situation, becoming defensive about the feedback that was coming to me. And so I want to talk a little bit about what I kind of took from the podcast episode and maybe share some pointers. And the way that I made these pointers that we're going to talk about here, it's from a Hidden Brain episode. It's called, hold on. The episode is called Know Yourself. Is that what it's called? Oh, it's not my no, it's not called Know Yourself. That's a book that I was looking at. It's called It's Not My Fault. It aired on September 15th of 2025. And so essentially it's not easy for us to receive negative feedback. Even when the person delivering that feedback is constructive and reasonable, we often feel the urge to defend ourselves. And so Sean Core talks to Emily Faulk, and they explore what causes so many of us to resist constructive criticism and how we can get better at giving and receiving such feedback. And then he also talks to psychologist Sierra Green about questions that they've had about memory and forgetfulness. So you should check out that podcast. It's called Hidden Brain. I'll try to throw a link to this in the episode description, and I'll also throw it in my Instagram channel, Dope Insights and Updates. Okay. And so what I did was I downloaded the episode, I put it into Notebook LLM, and I had it come up with some of the main talking points about the learnings from the episode. And so I'm just being transparent because I think that, again, I just had a conversation with everybody, fucking use AI. So I want you to think about some of these benefits of me sharing information utilizing AI. Okay. And so when we think about, the strategies to overcoming defensiveness to facilitate change, particularly those centered on the idea of making yourself smaller or reducing the prominence and the rigidity of the self. Okay, so the idea is that when we can dissolve ourself, which is a Buddhist concept, or kill ourself, then we can get a really good idea about what's taking place, what is the actual action of taking place. So defensiveness often arises because the brain conflates what is me, who am I, what is good, meaning that feedback or criticism feels like it's an attack on one's core sense of self and an identity one is fighting to protect. So again, this is why, and I think they talk about it. They talk about it in the podcast episode. I don't know if it'll talk about it in these notes, because again, AI did these based off of the episode that I downloaded. But that's why meditation is so important. And I've been talking a lot about meditating, and I have not had the time to meditate, and I can definitely feel that. But Vipassana or Zen meditation or whatever type of meditation that you're doing is the key, in my opinion, and I guess in Buddhist opinion, to enlightenment, but also the keys in defining who you are and to unlocking mysteries of yourself. And it's no surprise to me that when we utilize meditation, not only do we become more compassionate for all and more empathetic, right? It looks like based off of the fact that it helps us dissolve ourself, or to not look at ourself and what am I, and to look things as they really are, it would make sense that being able to do that in a lot of different situations in life would be beneficial, like being able to take criticism or feedback. So what are some of the strategies discussed in the podcast for reducing defensiveness? And this is all about making yourself smaller. So self-distancing techniques is one. So one approach is to reduce the dominance of the self, is to create psychological distance through self-distancing techniques. So taking the perspective of another person. So this technique involves taking the perspective of someone else, particularly someone within your social group who exhibits the desired behavior but is not you. So essentially, it's making the self less salient or prominent. One can reduce the threat response and become more open to the improvement. So when you are feeling defensive, take a step back, let it digest for a second, and think about what it is from what the other person is possibly seeing, right? When you're seeing it from a different technique, or try to put yourself outside of the body and watching yourself. Because if you do that, you can see how you are specifically acting, and you might be able to come to a clear distinction that you don't need to be defensive in this situation. In the podcast, they mentioned that, now I'm a horrible driver. I'm very aware of that. I don't like driving. I don't want to drive. One thing that I will admit, one of my friends, they gave me some feedback when we were in Tucson. Hey, Jeremy, especially when I was driving someone, could you drive a little bit better, because I'm in the car and someone that I care about is in the car. Very valid point. I did not get defensive of that. I understood that. Everybody should be able to say that and be like, hey, Jeremy, don't drive like a dick. You have other people in the car. And for someone to be defensive of that, the only time that I think someone would be defensive of that is if they thought that they were a really good driver. And 50% of the people that think that they are good drivers are not really as good as they think that they are. Most people always think that they're good drivers. And I've always taken it to the next level and said, I'm not a good driver. I want a driver to a car to drive me, or I would like a driver. End of story. And that's probably why I was able to be open for that kind of feedback, because again, it was very true and it was very right. And him speaking up, I respected that. Okay. So again, something to really think about when we're getting the feedback is to put yourself in that other person's perspective, not in that, I guess, in that other person's shoes, but look at it from their specific perspective. Okay. Based off of the episode that I downloaded. But that's why meditation is so important. And I've been talking a lot about meditating, and I have not had the time to meditate, and I can definitely feel that. But Vipassana or Zen meditation or whatever type of meditation that you're doing is the key, in my opinion, and I guess in Buddhist opinion, to enlightenment, but also the keys in defining who you are and to unlocking mysteries of yourself. And it's no surprise to me that when we do utilize meditation, not only do we become more compassionate for all and more empathetic, right? It looks like based off of the fact that it helps us dissolve ourself, or to not look at ourself and what am I, and to look things as they really are, it would make sense that being able to do that in a lot of different situations in life would be beneficial, like being able to take criticism or feedback. So what are some of the strategies discussed in the podcast for reducing defensiveness? And this is all about making yourself smaller. So self-distancing techniques is one. So one approach is to reduce the dominance of the self, is to create psychological distance through self-distancing techniques. So taking the perspective of another person. So this technique involves taking the perspective of someone else, particularly someone within your social group who exhibits the desired behavior but is not you. So essentially, it's making the self less salient or prominent. One can reduce the threat response and become more open to the improvement. So when you are feeling defensive, take a step back, let it digest for a second, and think about what it is from what the other person is possibly seeing, right? When you're seeing it from a different technique, or try to put yourself outside of the body and watching yourself. Because if you do that, you can see how you are specifically acting, and you might be able to come to a clear distinction that you don't need to be defensive in this situation. In the podcast, they mentioned that, now I'm a horrible driver. I'm very aware of that. I don't like driving. I don't want to drive. One thing that I will admit, one of my friends, they gave me some feedback when we were in Tucson. Hey, Jeremy, especially when I was driving someone, could you drive a little bit better, because I'm in the car and someone that I care about is in the car. Very valid point. I did not get defensive of that. I understood that. Everybody should be able to say that and be like, hey, Jeremy, don't drive like a dick. You have other people in the car. And for someone to be defensive of that, the only time that I think someone would be defensive of that is if they thought that they were a really good driver. And 50% of the people that think that they are good drivers are not really as good as they think that they are. Most people always think that they're good drivers. And I've always taken it to the next level and said, I'm not a good driver. I want a driver a car to drive me, or I would like a driver. End of story. And that's probably why I was able to be open for that kind of feedback, because again, it was very true and it was very right. And him speaking up, I respected that. Okay. So again, something to really think about when we're getting the feedback is to put yourself in that other person's perspective, not in that, I guess, in that other person's shoes, but look at it from their specific perspective. Okay. Another tool for creating psychological distancing is non-reactive mindfulness. Okay. And it's reacting in a non-reactive, mindful way. So it involves having whatever feelings arise, but doing so from a more distant perspective. Okay. So meditation plays a role in helping people let go of the bounded notion of self, which is the idea that one has a fixed and rigid sense of who they are that cannot change. So letting go of this bounded notion of self, it can open up to all kinds of other types of possibilities. And again, this can be practiced through like a Vipassana type of meditation. So if you're sitting there and you are just letting thoughts arise, when they arise, maybe instead of recognizing them and going away, try to recognize it from the other person's perspective or from an outside person looking into that specific thought. Okay, so if I close my eyes, right now, and this isn't something from like a judgmental thing, but like picturing, oh, I'm really, I'm worried that mom is going to be, anxious, and that's going to get me upset during my travel. Okay. That's a normal thought that would happen. We're leaving for Illinois. My mom gets very anxious. And so I can be very judgmental of that. And so maybe not judgmental of that, but maybe feel that maybe it frustrates me. So then I get in a bad mood. But now if I'm closing my eyes and I'm thinking of that situation, and then I say, you know what, let me think about that from her perspective. You know what? She doesn't fly a lot. Okay. I move really fast. Okay. She moves slower than I actually, she walks faster than I do, but in like thought and speech, I move really fast. Okay. So if I act, and then if she's already anxious, then I act in a dick way, then that's going to exacerbate her anxiety, which is going to frustrate me more. So maybe rather than reacting so fast, maybe I slow down and I listen to her concerns about what's going on when we do the traveling. I, am empathetic about her anxiety and don't say, you don't need to be that way, recognize those types of things. Then maybe she'll calm down and then we'll both have a really, really good trip. Okay. And so that could all happen from just one little episode of Vipassana. Because again, in Vipassana, we're allowing our emotions to come up, and we're usually recognizing them. In this specific instance, we're trying to look at them from a different perspective, and then we're letting them go. And when we do that, we not only practice like how to react in certain situations, kind of like what I just did, we also kind of manifest it, because that's what manifestation is. It's like that visualization that we do, that we practice for. That's what creates what the reality is. So me doing that right now is probably already going to make my trip 100 times better, because when those things happen, I've already practiced kind of like what I'm going to do based off of just telling you and doing that little thought experiment. Okay. So that's the second thing. So meditation, just meditate. I can't stress that enough. It's like the best thing. If people say that running and eating right are the best things for your body, the third thing is meditation. Meditation will change and improve your entire life. The next one is kind of like if you're giving feedback, I guess, but it could also work if you're getting feedback, because you could tell the other person that the way they're giving feedback could be better if they tried this, but you might get caught in like a defensiveness loop and everybody would just be defensive. But essentially it's called focusing on peripheral traits. So defensive-ness is often triggered because a criticism is perceived as attacking a core trait or identity. Researchers found that we are less willing to change things we consider central to our identity, such as kindness or compassion. So focusing on the peripheral trait is a strategy to reduce defensiveness, is to identify less closely with the characteristic that defines us, and it's easier to incorporate feedback about traits that are more peripheral, which are less central to one's self-concept. So for example, feedback about being well-spoken would be a peripheral trait. Or you might think if someone, gave me feedback on how I do my podcast, maybe they come and say, hey, sometimes you feel scattered on your podcast, or you talk really fast, or you don't pause enough, and maybe they want the sound to be better. Those are things that can actually be fixed, that aren't true to my core nature, right? They're just not things that are like, they're not coming to me and saying, hey, you're a jelly shitty person, you need to fix that about yourself, right? That I'll be like, oh my God, right? So the thing that I'm talking about the podcast, like the talking fast or things of that nature, that's like, those can be put into a peripheral type of trait. Okay. Whereas like change, like a core trait, like friendliness, or you being a shitty person because you're jealous, those are things that are like the true identity things about who we are, and we take defense to those. So if feedback can be framed as focusing on a less central aspect, like a logistical challenge rather than a moral failure, defensiveness is lessened. So in one of the examples in the episode, there was a conversation with the guest and her grandmother, and the initial defense reaction was due to perceiving the feedback as a threat to being a good granddaughter, which is a core identity. So shifting that focus on how to make this work logistically in their situation, because it was about like the grandmother coming over, the mother not being, like doing other things, and the grandmother was sharing them that they're not really spending time together. She looked at that as her being a bad grandmother, where it could have been put is, okay, so I don't want you to take that you're a bad grandmother, right? So if I'm thinking about this, how would the other person might take the thing that I'm saying? The grandmother could have like looked around and said, hey, you're really busy. Is there a way that maybe we could set time aside where you're not having to cook, and, the kids and me, the kids and you, we can maybe sit down and all talk or share stories. Could we put that time together? Because the other times you're really busy doing these other things, and I'm not able to spend that time talking to you. Okay. So we can change the way in which things are delivered so that people can be less defensive, which could have been a situation like I experienced earlier when I get defensive. If it was put into the specific example that needed to be fixed, and then we could have started that conversation there, then maybe I wouldn't have been as defensive. The next thing is kind of like how we interpret the feedback and making sure that we're reinterpreting the feedback. So as the receiver of feedback, one has control over the interpretation of the message. So this involves actively choosing to reduce defensiveness and letting go of the automatic reaction that stems from the conflation of the self and the value. So listening to the message, not really the implication. So again, seeing it as it really is. It is helpful to simply listen to what the person is saying as opposed to listening to the negative implication one might assume they are making. So a lot of the times when we get defensive about something, we're assuming something about what they're saying rather than just listening to what they're specifically saying and then either probing further, or if it's very to the point, then being able to respond adequately rather than getting defensive. So for instance, in the episode, when the grandmother says, I'd like to spend more quality time with you, the guest, who was the listener in this case, the grandmother was talking to, heard, I'm not a good granddaughter. So again, meditation can help process the world as it comes to us without layering on our judgment and value on top of it, which again is seeing it as it is. So if we can practice those things together, the meditation, and then when someone says something, okay, don't try to figure out why, if there's any kind of negative thing behind it, because it's not. Most people are just saying things that they observe about a situation, and we're not able to just observe it because we're looking out and we're not able to see the whole picture. Again, that's why we're going over this, so we can start to see the whole picture, so that we can take time to interpret what's actually being said rather than assuming an implication of it, and then we can take the time to adjust or have a further conversation. By shifting interpretation, one can see feedback as evidence that the person cares, which usually when people are giving feedback, they're wanting something to get better. The person that was giving me the feedback that I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, they were giving it to me so that they could make what we were trying to do to be much better, because they actually liked doing it and they want to see it be successful. So if we're going to all go down this path together, then she wanted to share that feedback so that we could make it better, so that we could all grow. Again, I didn't really imply anything, but I became defensive because, to me, what was being said was, well, again, I was trying to explain that happens to me a lot. People are constantly giving me feedback and I'm getting overloaded. So because of that, I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to take that. Let me think about that. And I'll take time to respond. That could have been a better solution to that situation or to that question. Okay. So it's very important that we look at that, because again, like I said, the person that was giving me my feedback, and most times when people are giving feedback, they're giving that feedback because that they care about what's happening, not because they're making a full judgment of you as a person. Okay. Now, Again, these are some of the strategies that were mentioned in the episode. Please go listen to the episode. It was fantastic. I'm always encouraging people every year, look at yourself and see if you were a little bit better than the year before. Now, I think that there are some things to that we need to be mindful of, that we don't want to put ourselves in this constant state of always just needing to get better, critiquing ourselves, putting ourselves down, trying to get better. But I do think that there is a middle ground of how we are getting better. And one of those ways is to listen to these types of podcasts, take some of the things that they're saying in these, try them out, see if they're things that you can add to your overall repertoire, and actively try to be better year over year. So again, this was Hidden Brain. This was an episode that came out on September 15th. It's called It's Not My Fault. I'll put the episode in the episode description on the podcast. I'll also throw it in my broadcast channel, Dope Insights and Updates. Make sure that you subscribe to that on Instagram. And as like I always say, be thankful, grateful, and kind, and we'll talk with you next time. Bye.